What's up guys, I am Shelby Nave. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, as promised, is going to be the second half of the Playboy video that I posted a few days ago. It's going to basically pick up right when we left off. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're gonna wanna hit pause on this video real quick. Go jump over to that video. I will link it in the description bar below. Go watch that one, then come back to this one because it is going to be just the follow-up of where we left off in the last video. I try my best to always fact check myself. If I say something in this video that you don't think is accurate, please nicely let me know in the comments below. Now let's get into it. Very long, sad story short, Snyder shot Dorothy in the face before turning the gun on himself and killing himself. Word got back to Hef. Hef called Bogdanovich, who was, of course, absolutely devastated by Dorothy's death. Understandably so. It soon became pretty clear that Peter Bogdanovich felt that the affiliation that Dorothy had to Playboy and Hugh Hefner contributed a lot into what ended in her death. He felt, based on things that she told him, that her time at Playboy was very exploitative, was not always safe, and caused her to marry an estranged man for protection, who ultimately killed her in the end. He wrote all about this in a book that he called The Killing of the Unicorn, where he basically blames Hef for her death and for all of his exploitative behaviors towards women. Hef actually ended up suffering a stroke in 1985, and he says that it was because of all of the stress and the sadness that accumulated after Bogdanovich's book came out, and he blamed him for everything. It was a minor stroke, they said, but it did cause him to make a lot of changes in his life. He quit smoking, he quit drinking, and he actually kind of stopped having the wild parties, at least I would assume as often. It was also at this point in time where he decided to hand his company over to his daughter. I have to give some credit where it's due. Hef had 2 kids at this point. He could have given the business to his son. He gave it to his daughter. That's kind of cool. But during this shift of power, it was actually a point where a lot of Playboy clubs across the world started shutting down. Because apparently Playboy had been losing money for a while before then. Mainly just because more competitors were emerging and other mediums were coming to the scene, like porn, for instance. But Hef's next notable romance was 23-year-old Kimberly Conrad. They started dating when Hef was 62. Kimberly was interesting because she kind of laid down the law from the beginning that's just yeah, if you want to be with me, you're not gonna have 5 other girlfriends. She said from the start, that's not me. If this is happening, it's gonna be monogamous, which he ended up committing to. He married Kimberly and they later had 2 sons. And the birth of his 2 sons ultimately was the cause for the entire atmosphere of the Playboy Mansion to shift to more family friendly, because the children were raised in the Playboy Mansion, at least for a while. But for 10 years, everything at the mansion kind of simmered down a little bit, and Hef was a family man. However, he also expressed that he was very depressed during this time period. From what I gathered, I think that Kimberly wanted to change a lot of things, and obviously he's a 60-something-year-old man at this point. He's probably been doing things his way for a long time, and I would imagine that that would cause tension. I think that she wanted a lot of things to be different, and she may have even wanted him to be different. But eventually Kimberly scooped up the kids and took off without even telling Hef, and that's ultimately what caused their separation. But this was a very unique separation because she definitely did not go far. Hef actually ended up buying the property next to the Playboy Mansion, and that was her house that she and the boys lived in, which was obviously very close to the Playboy Mansion. They didn't go far. Even though they were separated for a while, they didn't actually legally divorce for a pretty long time. And people said even after they were separated, they still remained very close. Hef always kind of seemed to pride himself that he is very close with his kids. Him and Kimberly have always remained good friends. But his split with Kimberly did not keep him down in the dumps for too long, because your boy was back on the market. Yeah, this 7-year-old man at this point was hitting up the single life again and was getting a lot of attention.
There was a whole other generation. He'd been away for 10 years that were waiting for him to come out and play. He was not just a celebrity now, but because he paid his dues, he was now an iconic celebrity.
Young women in their 20s flocked to him like he was the Pied Piper of promiscuity.
This is the part of his life that I like to call the new wave of Playboy, or the rebirth of Playboy. Because at this point in time, he had 7 girlfriends. One of them was Holly Madison, who became kind of the main girlfriend in this new wave of Playboy. She was his main squeeze, I guess, the main one. He always talked about how he would have his primary romances and then a bunch of like little secondary romances. Soon the 7 girlfriends dwindled down, and just the main trio of girlfriends that he had all throughout the 2000s that were the stars of The Girls Next Door was Holly, Bridget, and Kendra. All of them under 25, I'm sure. The Girls Next Door was actually my first exposure to like Playboy and Playboy things, because when I was younger, I would like walk into the room when my mom would be watching it, and my dad would very much not enjoy it if I was in the room when the show was on, or really if the show was on at all. I could tell he did not enjoy the show, which honestly I can understand. I decided to watch a few of these episodes just to kind of get a better understanding of, you know, how the girls and Hef were portrayed in the show. I was just kind of curious because I don't think I had even watched like a whole episode all the way through before. First of all, they do paint the girls off to be very ditzy, and like even like the background music and everything that they use in that show, it just seems very ditzy. I think that's the word.
I got a good idea though.
Another good idea.
No.
Also in the car.
No, okay, this is the thing. For publicity, we just show up there and look like we're getting married. All of us. We just show up there and we'll get so much publicity, it will be up the wall.
And then the arrest?
That's against the law?
Marrying a whole bunch of people is against the law.
But this show kind of reignited Playboy a little bit. But I mean, the Girls Next Door era of Playboy is just so interesting to me. I mean, like I said, I watched a few episodes just because I genuinely wanted to get a good understanding of the dynamic between this old man and his 20-something-year-old girlfriends. Honestly, the show makes their relationship seem like a weird mixture of a sorority slash sister wives slash sugar daddy, all in one. And just from my personal perspective, their relationship comes off very transaction-y. I mean, it really is kind of like Hef is their boss, and their job is to be his arm candy and to sleep with him, I guess. Like, their job is literally to be his girlfriend, and then they are compensated with a very lavish lifestyle, fame, money, any plastic surgery that they could ever want. And I feel like you don't even need to have any sort of experience with an emotional connection with somebody to know that these relationships are likely not based off love. I even watched this episode where Kendra was thinking about leaving the Playboy Mansion, and at this particular part, she's like letting her family know that this is what she's thinking about doing, that she thinks it might be time to move on. And the reaction that her family had to her really gave off the impression that like, you clearly are not capable of taking care of yourself. You shouldn't leave this man who takes care of everything you could ever possibly need.
I'm thinking about moving out of the mansion.
For heaven's sake, what are you gonna do?
What do you mean you want to leave? Well, why? I feel like it's time to like explore my life. It's so safe. It's secure. I know it's secure there. I know I have everything I could possibly want. Who would leave that? And how about paying bills? You never paid a bill in your life. Yeah. So?
There's like this whole bit in this episode where she's talking to her parents where she's just like, yeah, I need to go talk to Hef. Hopefully he lets me leave. Lets you leave? Why does she have to get his blessing to leave? When you're in a relationship with somebody, do you ever go up to them and ask if you can break up? No, you just break up. That's why I'm just saying, it's like he's her boss almost. Like she's in some sort of commitment with him that is likely more business. Well, I can't say it's even more business than pleasure. Playboy is a business of business and pleasure. It's mind-boggling to me that they always say that these relationships are romantic and these girls are in love with him, this, that, and the other thing, when it's just like Kendra herself even said in a later interview that she thinks of him as a best friend. So it's really hard for me to believe that those girls who are with him are actually there because of the romance. Like, it literally blows my mind that these relationships are even referred to as relationships when it is so blatantly obvious that a lot of girls are using this as a milestone for something bigger and better. Like, they clearly want something out of it. Like, even in the very early days, like at the start of Playboy, the majority of the girls who were posing for the magazine or working at the clubs, they wanted to be actresses or models, and they used Playboy kind of as like a springboard for their career to fame. It was a way to get noticed, a way to get their name out there, a way to experience some fame and embody the fantasy. This became even more clear later, like way later, when Holly Madison came out with a book describing what it was actually like to live in the Playboy Mansion and to be Hef's girlfriend. Not even just his girlfriend, but his main girlfriend. And the book definitely paints a massively different picture than what the TV show was painting. Holly talked about how Hef was actually very manipulative and would oftentimes pin girls against each other to create drama. All the girls who lived in the house, they had to abide by a lot of rules, and one of those being a 9 p.m. curfew. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. If you're an adult, you shouldn't have to have a curfew. As soon as I turned 18, I no longer let anybody tell me how late I can stay out. But it was a requirement for the girls to participate in group sex or like perform sexual acts in front of him or just like have sex with him whenever he wanted, which honestly for an 80-something-year-old man is kind of impressive. He basically popped Viagra-like vitamins, and that actually contributed a lot to his hearing loss. Like, he got it in so much he lost his hearing. But Holly even said that a lot of the girls were actually like embarrassed to be with him or like sleep with him, and they often would like deny it or they wouldn't tell anybody that they slept with him. And when they were sleeping with him, they were just kind of like going through the ropes. Like, it seemed like a lot of the girls just wanted to get it over with. And that's what I'm saying. Everything is so transactional. Honestly, so comical to me that people even refer to it as relationship. It's literally just providing someone with something and then getting compensated for it. That's not love. Like, I'm not the master of love or anything like that, but I don't think I need to be to know that that isn't love. Holly actually later expressed that she got really caught up in just like the glitz and the glamour and the lifestyle that Playboy, you know, had for her, that she actually felt that she lost herself. And I guess she just finally woke up one day and was just like, wow, this actually like really sucks, and I'm a lot more embarrassed than I am happy with my life right now. So she decided to leave, and apparently when she told Hef that she was about to leave, he tried to bribe her by leaving open his will showing that he was leaving her $3 million, and she ended up just leaving immediately. That's obviously super manipulative behavior, and the fact that she didn't just like wait around to collect the money, she decided to leave. I have some respect for that. That takes some strength to do, especially when you're so used to living under the security of something for so long. She totally could have stayed and taken the money, but she didn't, and I have respect for that. When Holly came out with this book, it obviously faced a lot of criticism, and I honestly can't imagine what that would have been like, going through something like that, but then being told that you're lying or you're rewriting history. Because honestly, even if she is lying and she's making all this up, I firmly believe that there is always a little bit of truth, at least in every single lie. And she does totally seem like genuinely embarrassed by the situation. It seems like she really just wants to move on from it. So I don't really see why she would lie about it.
When I got into the situation, it all seemed so light and fun, and all the girls there, you know, seemed happy. It seemed like this cute little sorority. But it had a way bigger effect on my self-esteem and sense of self than I ever thought, and everybody I knew outside the mansion really, really judged me.
The first night I went out with Hef and the girls, I got really drunk. He offered me prescription drugs, which I didn't take, but he offers Quaaludes to all the girls that would come out with him. And you know, you'd get upstairs and there'd be kind of this orgy that was going on. It turned out to be something that was traumatic for me in a way that I wasn't really prepared for. You know, when I first moved in, there were 6 other girls, and it just seemed like everybody wanted to get all that kind of thing over with very quickly and didn't really seem into it.
Kind of though expected, like he was this great, like, you know, lover. And he wasn't, right?
You just
laughed.
Yeah, I don't think that's why any of those girls were there.
It was all about career furtherance, right? And
yeah, definitely. Everybody saw it as, you know, some kind of a great opportunity. For years, I always thought that I was unhappy at the mansion because of the other girls. And as the years went by, I started to notice more and more that it was really Hef manipulating the situation. You know, he wanted to feel special. He wanted to feel fought over. But really, he was just really controlling. He wanted to appear that, you know, he had these 7 girls who were devoted to him. And I convinced myself that I was in love with him because I'd invested so much of myself in this situation.
Couldn't you just leave?
I could have, but I was scared to leave.
You would have married him?
Yeah, I didn't feel like anybody else would want me after having been there.
One night I was in a bathtub and I was just thinking about what would happen if I just sunk my head under the water. It was really what I wanted to do at the time.
Regardless if she's telling the whole truth or not, she's telling her truth, and it's pretty believable based upon all the other things that have happened throughout history. Eventually, Hef got a new trio of girlfriends and ended up marrying, how old is she? 26-year-old Crystal, and they were married all the way up until Hef's death in 2017. She was also reportedly not a part of his will. I know she had to sign a prenup before marrying him, so I think this was intentional and she knew about it, but still. Okay, how do I feel about Hugh Hefner now knowing everything that I know? We're going to go ahead and weigh out a few pros and cons regarding the good and bad of Hugh Hefner. Let's start with the pros. Let's go through all the things that he's done that make it seem like maybe we have judged him a little too harshly. The first thing I want to talk about isn't necessarily like a pro, but it's something that I think should be taken into consideration when we're reviewing Hef's character. And that is the fact that he didn't get a lot of love as a child, like affectionate love. And I really do think that that has a large effect on children. I honestly think that it created these like mommy issues, for lack of a better term. And so he spent the rest of the duration of his life kind of trying to fill that void, if you will, and fill the void with what he perceived was love.
I've never been in it for the money. In other words, Playboy isn't a business for me. It has been from the very beginning a labor of love.
I've spent my life in that quest looking for that perfect romantic connection where the words of the songs are true.
He always mentioned how he was heavily influenced by like romance films and romance music, and how he always wanted to be able to capture that like feeling of romance, I guess. And he has had such a history of failed romances, or romances that weren't based off love in the first place, which I feel like would just cause that behavior to be reinforced and happen over and over again. But literally, like, let's just take a look. He didn't get very much affection from his mother. His first crush friend-zoned him. His bride-to-be cheated on him. Barbie left him. Bobby killed herself. Kimberly left him. And all of the new wave of girlfriends left him. Like, he was married when he died, but like, he's got a long list of disappointment, I feel like. Like, the man has clearly felt his fair share of female loss in his life. And I feel like this could definitely contribute to the possessive kind of controlling behavior, or just like wanting lots of women in abundance and having kind of a control over them. Like, I think he literally just like has a void that has to constantly be replenished and refilled because he's gone through so much loss that created that. Like, I literally kind of think it's like a psychological defense to remain in control or to not feel empty. These are all just guesses coming off the top of my head. I am not a psychologist. I don't know anything like that. This is just, if I had to think of a solution, this is the solution that I would think of. But another thing to take into consideration is that there were tons of people who thought that Hef was this super nice and genuine and great, sweet man. Like, there was tons and tons of interviews that spoke very highly of Hugh Hefner. And honestly, I don't think that Hef is like a mean man. I don't think he's the type of person who would be just blatantly rude to somebody upon meeting them. Just of what I've gathered. Obviously, I've never met, I don't know this person at all. Take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. This is my opinion. I don't think he's a mean person, and I respect the fact that he continued to take care of his marriages even when he wasn't a part of the marriage anymore. Like, he clearly cares about his family. Another pro, even if you don't respect his work, you have to respect his hustle. The man created something completely different basically out of nothing. Is everyone necessarily happy with the thing he created? No, but you can't deny the fact that he did make something huge that wasn't a thing before. He clearly had a very insane work ethic and was very committed to living out his dream. I respect hardworking and ambitious people. I have to give that to him. It's also pretty cool that he handed off his business to his daughter. He had a son at that point. He very well could have handed it off to his younger son, but he handed it off to his daughter because she expressed interest, because she wanted to, and he did that. That's cool. Good job for not being that dad who only hands things down to the son. He also was a pretty strong advocate for like civil rights, gay rights, etc. Clearly a very progressive man during these very reformative years that he lived through, and obviously cared about the equality of people. My last positive that I would like to share has absolutely nothing to do with everything that we've been talking about, but just the fact that he clearly was a very big cinema fan, and he paid $27,000 of his own money to repair the Hollywood sign. But not only that, he's donated a bunch of his own money to like film organizations and film schools and stuff like that over the years. I respect him. for donating for the craft of film. But now let's move on to some cons. The first one being, just like there's a crowd who thinks he's the best man ever, he also has a crowd that thinks he's probably the actual worst. Just not very likable, not gentlemanly at all. And I think it really just kind of depends on who you talk to about that. I definitely think that he used women as a tool for the male sexual revolution. Like, I do think that in a way, Playboy celebrated women in a different way and did help them to break out in a very male-dominated industry. However, I don't think that that was Hef's intention going into it. Like, it's cool that women benefited that way, but I don't think that that was like any of his reasonings for going into this line of work. I think his reasonings were very like male benefiting, because even though there were a lot of Playmates who grew to become very famous and very successful in whatever it is that they were doing, but there was also people who participated in Playboy who got called every name in the book and were harassed because of it. Obviously, I don't like the use of non-consensual photos. I think that is a very sleazy exploitation of women, and I can't believe that that was even a thing. Obviously, in Marilyn Monroe's case, just used that for his own personal gain, which is not cool. Basically, just the objectification of women in general is not cool. Like, he, in a way, kind of really made it seem that women were here for the pleasure of men, and if they're not strikingly beautiful or willing to take their clothes off, then, like, what's the point of you? I also don't like double standards. Don't like double standards, manipulation, any of the like controllingness that he had over his girlfriends. Strong dislike. The sexual harassment regarding Playboy clubs and like the rules that all the girls had to follow to remain just like perfect is also very dumb. I don't like how he seemed to turn a blind eye towards predators in the Playboy Mansion, and like, I wasn't there. I don't know what Hef did and did not do. However, I think I've watched enough interviews of people that it's like, if something was going on, he probably knew something about it. And I also think that he probably encouraged it. Whether it was intentional or not, he probably did, because it's like, if you're inviting all of these men, some of which being predators, over to your place where you have just a bunch of beautiful women, like, that's really kind of putting them in danger. And I know that it's like, he probably been like, oh, talk to so-and-so, she's great, or why don't you spend time with this girl or that one. Like, it's kind of like just giving away his own personal band of women, and that's not cool. Do I think he's misogynistic? Honestly, no. I don't think he hates women. In fact, I think he really likes women. But I also don't think he's necessarily expressed very much of an appreciation of women beyond their body. So yeah, that's basically all that I have on Hugh Hefner. And honestly, guys, I see points on both sides of the spectrum of if we like Hugh Hefner or not, or if he is a good person or not. Because I think that he has done a lot of things that I wouldn't classify as a good person, but I also think that he had a lot of underlying issues that maybe may not have been fully dealt with. I think that perhaps his intentions weren't what was taken out of it in some instances, which I think also comes to be a little bit of a responsibility thing. But I don't know, it's really hard to say whether or not he was, you know, celebrating women or just exploiting them, because you got to think about it too. He didn't make anybody do anything. He didn't force any women to go there and take her clothes off. Like, that would be an evil thing to do. He didn't make anybody do anything. So it really is kind of this blurred line of, is he a bad person for even making this an option for women to do, or is it at some point the women have to take some sort of responsibility for the choices that they make? It's a really slippery slope. I don't like the thought of women getting taken advantage of. However, I think there does come a certain point where it's like, you have to have the respect for yourself to make decisions that are ultimately going to affect your life. I don't think he necessarily influenced all the best of things, but he also helped to create what is now the reality for women. Does that make sense? I'm really trying not to offend anybody when talking about this. All I'm saying is that I see the reasonings why some people think he's awesome and a true innovator and just like the icon of pop culture that he is. But I also see why people think he created something that's actually very toxic and he's not good at all and actually really manipulative. It's hard to say. I don't know the man. I never will. He already passed away. But I really want to know, what What do you guys think? What do you think of this entire video? Everything from start to finish. What was the part that was most shocking to you? Do you think that Hugh Hefner is bad, or do you think he's just morbidly misunderstood? Please leave me your comments. I just want to hear what you guys have to say. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to this point, I know this video is probably stupid long. If you like this video, definitely give me a thumbs up down below, and don't forget to subscribe. If you would like to hang out with me in between uploads, I have linked all of my social media in the description box below. You can go give me a follow if you want, but as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you the next time I upload a new video.